Gentleman from 63rd, delegate Folk.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Since we're talking about wasteful spending in our government, let's talk about an aircraft, one that flies about maybe a half a dozen hours a month, that sits over somewhere at the Charleston airport. That's wasteful spending. Let's talk about flying a president of WVU around for, at the current fiscal year, over $1,010,000 on a private jet that's chartered out of Pennsylvania. And there's been some people say, well, it's used for foundation fundraising. Well, that's fine. Let the foundation pay for it. They're a private organization. Let the foundation pay for it. Now let's talk about something that's reality, mathematically and financially. We use a ratio seems like once a week at least, that we need to stay above 15% of our rainy day fund and our general revenue budget. 15%, that's the numbers that's always floated to prevent our bond rating from being in jeopardy of being downgraded. There's not been one proposal by the governor that does that, keeps it above 15%. His latest proposal, which I believe is $4.35 billion, takes no money from the rainy day fund. However, since it raises the spending to $4.35 billion, the denominator in this fraction, it drops our percentage to 14.7%. So if you want to talk about wasteful government spending, let's actually get to what we're here for, which is a budget, not raising taxes. This body, this leadership in this body, the leadership in the body across the building, and the leadership in the governor's office all seem to want to do one thing, and that's to raise taxes. While not taking one, I haven't seen the budget being discussed that was introduced, I believe, the last time we were in this building, be discussed yet, either on the floor or in committee. Now let's go through a few more numbers, a couple other scenarios. If you pass a budget that is $4.055 billion, doesn't take any money from the rainy day fund, and you keep your percentage at almost 15.8%. Believe it or not, you can give a little. Pass a budget that's $4.082 billion, take up to $27 million from the rainy day fund, and you still stay above 15%. But that leaves you very little room for error. If we spend more or our revenues are less, we're going to drop. The highest, the sweet spot, if you want to be a tax and spend legislator, is $4.26 billion, about $205 million revenue increase for FY18. But that leaves you no room for error. You know, I am getting totally frustrated to making that 310-mile trip from Berkeley County down to here, leaving my family at home. My son's birthday is today. We did have the birthday party yesterday. And actually reduce, and you know, I've had people say on social media that we're double dipping. No, I'm 1/10 dipping. I gave up a trip to Madrid today, dropped it yesterday from my regular work schedule because we're all part-time legislators in here. We're supposed to be, but for some reason in the last couple of years, this is turning into a full-time job. A full-time job figuring out how we can extort more money from the private sector in this state. And I'm appalled at this side of the chamber for even considering that a second year in a row. It's one thing to do it last year when you decide to tax something that people decide to do that is a bad habit. But it's another thing when you decide to tax people in the latest proposal, if they want to put a deck on or put a roof or brick their house or add an addition and it's above $15,000, they're going to pay 6.35%. And I didn't plan on speaking today, but this is seriously frustrating that I come down here for 3 or 4 days in a row and do nothing but watch leaders go behind closed doors and try to figure out how they can get 51 votes to rip off the taxpayer and take more money from the private sector. It's time to stop. It's time to run a budget bill before you run a tax increase bill.